Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Today, Center Friend Black's chapter will be interviewing Dr. ABC on Black brilliance and yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashanti. And thank you so much for the quick introduction. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak and to share with you all as we get into this conversation concerning anti-Black racism, disrupting anti-Black racism from within. So, as I said, welcome again, everyone. It's really a privilege for me to speak with this amazing group of young people, and not just the group of young people, but all persons a part of the school district who will be able to engage in this learning process, will be able to engage in the video, will be able to engage in the conversations that would come up more. So it's important that we think about, when we think about disrupting, so there's a lot's been happening in regards to anti-Black racism, you know, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, whatever you can think of marginalization happening within our schools. There's a lot happening. But we want to really take this minute and this few minutes to focus on how do we disrupt anti-Black racism within our school, within, because we are participants, we are students, we are teachers, we are workers, we are stakeholders within it, a part, something that we want to discuss. And so it's important for us still to do the disrupting. And for me, the reason why is really two words: access and opportunity. Because we are within the system and we have access to the system. You know, we often know how things are created in the system. And so we have that opportunity to disrupt what we know has been created in the system. And so this is important that we think about it. So today we're going to look at four things I really want to spend the next 20 minutes to talk about. And is, what are we disrupting? You have heard this terminology quite a bit. Disrupt, dismantle, disrupt, dismantle. You've heard it. What are we disrupting? Who is disrupting? Who is doing the work of disrupting? Because what I must say off the bat, in every school you go, there are persons who are on the Equity Council, the Equity Committee, the EDI Committee, the Anti-Black Racism Committee, the Subcommittee, the Working Group. There's so many formations of groups and organizations, but who is doing the disrupting? Are these people committed to the process of disrupting? Do these people have the courage and the moral courage to do the work that disrupting demands? You know, and today, as I started an earlier conversation, I was looking even at the t-shirt that was worn by one of your fellow students, I think it was Gabby, and showing us the t-shirt. Even that, even the idea of putting an effort into creating a message that you wear is a part of the disrupting. The emblems, the sign, the signal, whatever is a part of it, is a part of the disrupting. And many things need to be disrupted in our schools. I look at some of you who are participating today. I look at your hairstyle and I see you I see all of you. I see your hair. But you have to remember, a lot of Black women, Black girls in school, they are marginalized. They're excluded. They are not seen because the standard of what's supposed to be seen is from a dominant culture. So we have to think about who is doing the disrupting. What needs disrupting in our school, and what tools are we using to do the disrupting? So the first thing I want us to look at is, as we said before, what are you disrupting? What are we disrupting? When we talk about disrupting, what are we disrupting? And I love this slide because right now, last year after George Floyd's death, a lot of persons, especially in education, pretended as if that was the first time a Black man was murdered. And so, you know, we must admit the fact that that led to a wider time of awareness and discussion, but it was not new. Systematic racism in Canada is not new. Marginalization and exclusion of our Black students is not new. Of certain privileged programs in our school, those things are not new. The failure rate, you know, because people are placed in certain kind of option, the streaming, those things are not new. How many Black parents are spoken to by staff members and educators, those are not new. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we disrupting? And what I want you to understand is that what we are disrupting is systematic racism that is there. And I love this picture because it allows us to play with what we see happening around us, the level of pretend, like, I'm not sure. I need a letter to finish this. Not so sure. One of the conversations I must say to you as students and as staff is that so many persons pretend as if we didn't have slavery in Canada. I must tell you, when I came to Canada, I came to Canada 2008. So of course I'm an immigrant. You may hear my beautiful accent. That is Jamaican accent coming through. Come through Jamaican accent. You know what I'm saying? And when you hear that, when I came in 2008, I almost thought that from the narrative around us, it is as if the story of slavery began when Harriet Tubman started to free slaves running from America up here. And that's what many of us, we want. We have the conversation. That's not true. That is absolutely not true. We had slaves in Canada. We have slavery in Canada. We have people who have been stigmatized and stereotyped and ostracized and marginalized. We have all of that here, and we want to own that. We want to own that. So I put two pictures because I want to show you, and I could have given you way more, just so you know, but we only have a few minutes for this. And I put this photograph of the mother who rejected the school apology in Alberta area when her son was asked, when do-rag was a ban against do-rag. And I use this for a reason, because I want you to know that many of our schools have very oppressive practices, rules, policies. One of the things I must tell you as young people listening to me, that, and don't worry, I did my research. I have seen a copy of your Upper Grand District School Board Equity Plan. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. You know, we like to have documents. Documents are important. Documents are important, but the actions behind the documents are more important. And I must let you know that there are many schools that you see things happening like these issues, and they are embedded in the school. Persons came together to make these rules, and they're intentional about a certain particular population. Because the truth is, the persons who wear do-rag are really Black and Hispanic young people. That's a population that wears a do-rag. So you are literally excluding a particular population. And I'm sure you have seen also this disappointing news in the middle of what was going on, in the middle of all the pandemic, the race pandemic. We had two pandemics. We do have the COVID, and we have the pandemic racism. And in the middle of this, a school in Pickering, not too far from where I live, this happened. So when we have these conversations about disrupting and the urgency, I want all of us to take responsibility to realize there is an urgency to the work that needs to be done. There is an urgency to the work that needs to be done. And I use the words of a great singer, one of our Jamaican singer there, Bob Marley. And he says, I want to disturb my neighbor. And that's from Bob Marley, one of the greatest singer, right? Uprising 1980. I want to disturb my neighbor. And the reason why he wanted to disturb his neighbor, he said, because the neighbor played a bad card. A lot of our students in our schools are being dealt a bad card. I want to repeat that. A lot of our students are being dealt a bad card. Not just Black students, in many areas of discrimination, marginalization, immigrant students, our Black female students. I'm going to get into that in a minute, because that's a thing we see happening a lot. We see that happening. We see the disrespect a lot by our Black female. That happens a lot to our Black women, and we want to address that. So we want to disturb that. You have to be a disturber. Remember, when you talk about who is disrupting, I want you to understand, when you are a disruptor, you are not going to be the most popular person on the block. I want to encourage all of you young people who are a part of the Black Caucus and the Black Student Group. Remember, this is not the fabulous, oh my God, we're going to be cheerleaders. This is not that group. This is not that group. A lot of persons, come into the work of disrupting, and they'll say to me, you know, I am feeling this, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling this pressure, because the work of anti-Black racism and disrupting is heavy lifting. And even if you're a white person and out there and you're a staff member who is white and you're an ally, it is heavy lifting for you, because if to be a real, genuine ally, you're going to have to do some heavy lifting. This is not the cute allyship where you just wave. This is where you get yourself into it, and it takes work. So I want you to think about that. In doing the disrupting, you have to be brave. I want you to make a note of that. You need to be brave. We love to use a word, you know, we have a word we use a lot, Ashanti. We talk about safe space. Safe for who? A school can create a room, paint it blue, put a number on it, and say, this is a safe room for Black people. Safe for who? The users of the room must say this is safe. And I want to say this to all the educational leaders who are listening to me, all you staff members, all you educators, all you counselors, psychologists, whoever you are in the school. Whatever space you are creating, whatever school you are creating, and you're slapping on the word safe, you can't slap the word safe on. Safe has to be the students, the users of the space have to say to you, we feel safe. And I can tell you, as a Black man, there are places I go in that I feel safe, because I have accessed the space and I have used the space and I feel safe. But I can tell you there are spaces that I go in that I don't feel safe. So what do you do, Dr. Campbell, when you don't feel safe? Guess what I do? And this is advice for all of you. I feel brave. So there are many days I'm not safe, but I'm brave, because I understand if I'm going to disrupt, I need to be brave in the disruption. So a big thing I want to point out to everyone, I would never do this talk justice if I didn't share this slide. A lot of us are talking about the work of racism and anti-Black racism and equity, equity and equity and equity. We have to talk about who is doing the disrupting. And one of the big things I want all of us, not just the Black students or the white, but all of us, examine yourself. Who are you? Who are you coming to this work? Who are you? What are the jokes you've been having? What are the jokes you've been saying? What are the things you've been saying? What are the conversations you've been having? Do you understand your bias and your prejudice and your privilege? Do you understand them? We talk about unconscious bias. Do you understand your own unconscious bias and your conscious biases as well? I want us to know that we have to know who we are. That brings me to a slide I want to talk a little bit about misogyny. And the fact that you see in the work that we do a lot, you see about the woman and you see the work, we can safely say the work of anti-Black racism and disrupting and breaking. You look at any single activism work out there and you see women at the forefront. You talk about Rosa Parks, Sojourner Douglas. You talk about Harriet Tubman. You just name the names of Black. If I ask all of you to name me, if we were doing a talk today and you are here with me and I ask every one of you to name Black activists, you would have names of female just going up. And what we find is that the Black woman, it was said, one of the most disrespected person. And we have seen it in the work. We have seen it. So misogynoir, we have seen it describe the intersection of anti-Black racism and sexism and their compounded negative impacts on the physical, social, psychological, and economic well-being of Black women and girls. I had to put that in. And I wasn't surprised because I didn't know who was coming. And I turn on and I see Black women, Black female students' faces, right? So we want you to understand that this is something that we need to do. But you know why I was happy when I was asked to do this? Because we need to speak to our men. We need to speak to our Black men, our Black boys about their job, their role in protecting our Black women. I'm going to repeat that. Oh, I'm going to repeat it. We need to speak to our Black men and our Black boys about their role in respecting and protecting our Black women. I want you to understand that, because we see what's going on in the fight. And we see, and I'm going to tell you something for the record, a sad story. This wasn't planned, but I have to tell you because this ties in. In my debate the other day, Mr. Harvey, in my conversation the other day, I have negotiated with tons of people last year who want a workshop. I've been doing this for years. Just so you know, I'm doing this for years. I am not your one black speaker. Don't label me that. Don't you label me that. I am not your black man who do the black talk. And that's something we need to talk about, how we box in black excellence and how we box it in, and it can only be a certain thing. You know what the pleasure I had the other day of talking to a group of young ladies, young black ladies, all in STEM, all in STEM. Nobody's doing equity work, they're doing STEM work. So I want you to understand, do not just think about your black students, your black female as being fitting for certain category. We are excellent to do everything. Everything. And that is why we have to disrupt the system, because the system has not allowed black excellence in certain spaces. And the next video, we're going to talk about black excellence today. But I'm going to give you back the story. And I'm negotiating with people about speaking engagement. And everybody wants you to talk about anti-black racism. And can I tell you, the number of times I negotiate with someone and they wanted me to tailor the conversation as not to disrupt or to make anybody uncomfortable. And can I tell you, in some of those cases, the person I negotiated with was a person who was a black man, trying to be a part of the boys' club and watering down the message. So I want to call you out today. Everybody, I want to call you out. We have to do this work, and we have to be authentic in doing this work. We have to be authentic in doing this work. And we see from my slide the many ways that misogynoir look like, the lack of race, we see it. Women with high maternal mortality rate, we see the black woman's call to end street harassment went unearned. We have seen it. And I want us to understand that. So I had to put that in. I really had to include that so we understand that this conversation is important. And as we continue pulling our black students forward, we have to remember to honor their very identity, respect and honor their identity. And that leads me to our next point. What needs disrupting in our schools? What needs disrupting? I used this quote the other day in August, and it's been on Twitter and all over. Too many of our students are made to feel that they are strangers in schools, as if they are interrupting something. Let the students feel that the classroom is theirs. I say it to all our educators listening, all our teachers, all persons in charge of school, all our stakeholders. It's important. What are we disrupting, Dr. Campbell? We're disrupting racism. We're disrupting anti-black racism. We are disrupting microaggressions and macroaggressions. We are disrupting marginalization of black students, exclusion. We are disrupting streaming. We are disrupting special programs that caters to privileged students, and the black students can never find themselves in it. We are disrupting the lack of representation. I am a teacher for 25 years, so I'm speaking from a place of knowing. I have gone to schools where the population is 85% racialized. The student population and the school is 95% white staff. Oh, and I hope you realize I use terminologies white and black because we have to see color. This foolishness that I don't see color, I hope nobody use that word after today. You know, I don't see color. We want you to see color. We want you to see difference. We want you to see it and honor it. Because when you say you don't see color, what you do, you actually limit the urgency in certain areas of our lives. So I want you to know that we have to disrupt that. We have to disrupt the deficit thinking in school. There's a big research about deficit thinking in our schools. And I just want you to know, this slide you're looking at is not an exhaustive list, you know. Programs, curriculum. I could tell you tons of stories about programs in schools. dance programs that only the privileged students get to access, and it was for everyone. But the teacher themselves, I can tell you about music programs where Black students didn't even know they were Black opera singers because the music teacher didn't bother to mention that. I say it all the time. Black excellence has always been there. We just don't feature it. So I'm going to challenge all of our educators who are listening to me. Your job is to feature Black excellence. And not in February, I'm talking about 365. Look around you on your walls. Look in your textbooks. Look, if we had an entire day, we'll talk about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy and what that looks like in your school. And it's not using a Black poster in February. It's not having a book with a Black girl on the cover. It's not asking the Black girl to read the notices in February. That's not it. That's what you call a sprinkle. Nobody wants a sprinkle. We're done with sprinkle. What we want is equity to be a central part. We talk about the equity plan for your school. I'm going to keep showing it to you. If you have never seen it, it's on your school website. Take a look at it. Take a look at what is in it. How are we going to disrupt schools, culture, and climate, teacher pedagogy and practice, representation, policies and processes. That's a big one they talk about in your booklet. Policies, teacher professional development, and leadership. Schools, culture, and climate. I love this quote from the TCDS, the Toronto Catholic District School Board. I love this quote. I really like it when they talk about, equity plan. And what I liked about it were certain basic words that were mentioned I want to bring forward is the idea of students' lived experience are valued and celebrated. Are you valuing and celebrating the students' lived experiences? Barriers to their success are identified and removed. We talk about this already. The safe and inclusive learning environment. Those who serve our communities are reflected in our diversity. Many persons don't like you to talk about that. I could give you a ton of story. People get offended and get funny when you talk about representation matters. Certain places are hiring Black staff and people are getting troubled about that. I have had people ask me and I said, no matter how many Black teachers you hire, you could never reach the number you need because we are so behind. We're so behind. I was asked a question the other day. Somebody said to me, Dr. Campbell, what kind of books are you reading? And I said, anything Black. And they look at me, I said, you have to remember, I'm from Jamaica. I grew up in a country where the system we learned from was the British system. A lot of our books, things have changed very, very significant in the last 20 years, I would say, or 25 years. But I could tell you, growing up, I have read almost every single Hardy Boy and Nancy Drew. That was our book. I knew Huckleberry Finn Ride on a River before many of us saw in our storybooks that we had rivers because we were given that. So I am saying to the teachers, the educators, how do you disrupt anti-Black racism and racism is how you present material. How do you ensure our students see themselves in your curriculum? I'm going back to it. How do you ensure our students see themselves in the curriculum? Important. Important. And what I love is when I talk about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy, I love that topic. And it gives you, I would consider to be the best inclusive practice for breaking down and disrupting anti-Black racism in school. And it talks about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. And it has 3 tenets. Three, I want you to see them. Holding high expectation for all students, assisting students in development of their own cultural competence. That's a big one for us to talk about the next time, cultural competence, and guiding students to develop critical cultural consciousness. But I want to go back to the big one, holding high expectations of all students? Can you truly say to your students, can you truly say to your students of color, your Black students, your BIPOC students, can you truly say to your students, I see you? I see you beyond the stereotypes. I see you beyond what I read in the magazine. I see you. I remember when I went to Atlanta to teach. I went to Atlanta, rural Georgia. So it wasn't Atlanta, it was outside of Atlanta in Georgia. And I was at a school where the kids were bused to the school because of the neighborhood they were from. But my first time in America, and these kids were the first time having a teacher from away. And they said to me, you're from Jamaica? And I said, yes. They said, do you live in a tree? I share that story with you because they weren't joking. They were genuinely asking, because what are the stereotypes being projected, being promoted? So ask yourself about yourself in the upper Grand District. What are the stereotypes that you perpetuate about Black men, Black women? People ask me all the time, people have asked me for a smoke of ganja all the time because they believe I smoke ganja. Nothing is wrong with ganja and weed, but I just don't smoke. But we assume that. We have stereotypes. You see a Black man come, you clutch your purse because what the stereotype is, he's gonna steal, he's gonna rob, right? So we have to think about it. Do we see our students? Do we see the possibilities? Do we see them? I was at a school last year, February, right before COVID hit. I was a keynote at a school. And I'm going to talk to you later on when we talk about in the next video about Black excellence. And I was a speaker. And I was talking to an auditorium full of students, full, hundreds. And in one of my slides, I had this picture. And when I was done, a bunch of hijab-wearing girls came over to me. I made about 8 of them. I saw them in the audience, but this was my slide I prepared. And when they walk over to me, they said, we love your presentation. And then they said, and that slide when you show the cover of Arabia Vogue with the hijab-wearing woman on the cover, she said, wow. And somebody may say, really? Really? Wow. Why they said that? Because they didn't see it anywhere else in your school. So let me challenge you. Show me where all in your schools, your various spaces, you are representing Black excellence. How it should be. How do you feature it? Because a lot of you show Black images and you feature them in deficit. I don't want to see a picture of a Black man bent over a police car. Don't show me that. Feature Black excellence in your classrooms. Show me move away from the stereotypes and the deficit thinking and show your students of color possibilities. Show the Black boys this, possibilities. That's how you disrupt. So I hope you're not disappointed you came for some policy for disruption, because the disruption begins with you. Let me repeat that for emphasis. The disruption begins with you. I was in Ottawa 3 years ago doing a workshop, and it was fabulous. All kind of fabulous people, and suit and ties and pencil skirt. Was amazing. And you had to go through all kind of security to get in government office. And I said to these people who are policy makers, I said to them, you know what I'm more interested in than all the paperwork we have this morning to look at? I'm more interested in your conversation this morning in Starbucks. What did you say when you saw that Black woman with those 3 kids? What did you say when you saw that immigrant man? What did you say? I am more interested in your conversation more than anything else. I'm interested in what your conversation is last night around the table when you saw the news or whatever. I'm interested in that because change happens from within. And a lot of us are called for accountability. Accountability begins with you. And that's what we want, is accountability to begin with you. We want the accountability to begin with you. As you think about what actions will you take? Last question on our list today. What action will you take to disrupt? And that action begins with you. If you don't remember anything, remember the disruption begins with you. And there are 3 words I'm going to leave with you. 3 words I want to leave with you. Empathy, compassion, and love. And trust me, there's research out there to support the 3 words. So they're not 3 fabulous words I just got up with today. There are research out there to support empathy and the power of empathy in equity, and the lack of empathy and the need for empathy, love, and compassion. So the action we don't need a performance. I put that there for a reason. A lot of us, we're engrossed and we're involved in performing equity, the performance of equity. It's not real, it's a stage, it's a performance. People are asking for you to stop the performance and to be intentional. That's a picture of your own equity plan. And what I love when I look at it, I saw the identify and name bias and oppression. It talks about eliminate bias, oppression, and racism, address and educate, and build collaborative relationships. I want you to think about it. Don't go too far for the answer. It's right there. I looked at it. I read almost every word in it. It's right there. It's right there. The language is there. Now, what we need is the action. You have the language. You have the document. You have the people. We need the action. There's always light if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we are brave enough to be it. Think about that. As we think about disrupting anti-Black racism, and all the many other isms and schisms in our schools, we're focusing on anti-Black racism today. But think about all the other intersections and all the other intersections, because remember, we discriminate not just because of race and color, but some of those persons have layers to them. They are Black, but they are immigrant. They are Black, but they are female. They are Black, but they are LGBTQ. They are Black, but they are trans. They are Black, but they are also in a wheelchair. They are Black because they also have a speech impairment. They are Black because they also come from a different kind of family. The intersectionality we have to think about. And as we think about those actions, I just want to review the list. The understanding of yourself, learning and unlearning. I know it seems strange we come to school to unlearn, but we have to unlearn. A lot of things we have to unlearn. And today, I think we're hopefully, not hopefully, I think we're starting more and more of a courageous conversation. We have to have them. We call them courageous because not as a cute term, because they take a certain kind of effort to be engaged in. Create and remediate policies and practices with the equity lens. We talk about that. And all the leaders in the room who are listening today, all the leaders who will listen next week and next month and the other month and next year, whenever this video is available, it will always be available for you to listen to it. Think about your leadership as a teacher. And when I say leadership, I don't mean the school principal and superintendent, I mean all of us who are leading. Be authentic. When you come on the committee, make sure you are authentic. When you're talking about your planning Black History Month, make sure your leadership is authentic. When you're talking about change, make sure it's authentic. You have the moral courage and you're ready to lead. And I leave you with this. Your actions to promote inclusion within your organization must be deliberate and intentional. Absolutely. 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 So thank you so much for listening. I know it's a short video. We have a few questions, quick questions from our students who are with us today. Thank you so much for being here to participate in the recording. So let's take the first question quickly. Go ahead, Ashante.
My first question is, how do I call out a racist classmate without coming across as the Black and angry stereotype? Can you give some examples too, please?
Okay, so the quick answer for that I'm going to give to you is that you have to remember that you don't walk in a label. A label is put on you. So you don't walk in with a label. So when somebody gives you a label as a Black angry woman, you know, you have to remember that that's a label. That is a label. That's a stereotype they're working with. And what you have to do is you have to sustain the conversation. And a lot of people have pulled back. Ashanti, they have pulled back because they don't want to be called that. So they have pulled back. You have to sustain the conversation. You have to sustain the conversation. You know, Martin Luther, Sojourner Douglas, Harriet Tubman, if you ask people what are the labels those people were called, I can tell you a lot of labels. A lot. Nasty woman was a label being used a lot in the last 2 years for certain Black women who have done the work. So they will give you that angry Black woman. But here's what I'll close on your answer by saying, you also have reasons to be angry. Think about that. You have reasons to be angry. It's not a label you wear, but you do have reasons to be angry. Thank you for that, Ashanti. Who is next?
That would be me. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, so I'll go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, given the current climate of anti-Black racism, how do Black students combat the stigma around mental health issues?
There's a lot. There's a lot. But you know what? I'll say this because we don't have much time. I'll say this to you. Do not feel as Black students, Black educators, whoever you are, do not feel like you have to always respond to everything. This is heavy work. And we have to take care of our health. Something I post on my Twitter a lot, I will post pictures of me taking a break. And I take a good break. I take a very good break. And I live my best life when I take the break. Because I want you to understand you can't do this work and not take care of yourself. There's hurt in this work. There's pain in this work. As Ashanti asked, there's labeling and stereotyping in this work. You can't carry all of that without taking good care of yourself. And so make sure you surround yourself with people who can also care for you, because what you're going to need is that care. And the last thing I say about mental health and the stigma is that a lot of Black persons have stayed away from, getting the help they need because of the stigma. You can't allow that. That's what stigma is. You can't allow that to prevent you from getting the healing you need. And we have to remember, in a lot of the work of disrupting anti-Black racism is dealing with the trauma and the hurt. So it's there. Thank you so much. Next question.
That's for me. Okay, so what do you say to a white teacher that doesn't want to call out racism in the classroom or won't address a racist student because they feel uncomfortable?
So two things I'm going to say. This one I could have spent an entire day with you, Gabby, for this question. But let me tell you something. All teachers have the responsibility to call out. All teachers, that's number one. All teachers have the responsibility to call out. The document says that as well. So this is the work we say we are doing. So if you're an employee of the school board, you are required to do this work. The school board already says the work is supposed to be done. We're not trying to figure out if the work is supposed to be done. We're saying the work is to be done. And the last thing I'll say to you is, and this is very important, because you hear this a lot, Gabby, people saying, oh, I'm uncomfortable. And when I started this work, I have to tell you, when I started doing this work years ago, I remember other workshop presenters would say, well, if somebody's uncomfortable, I want you to step out the room. And I remember that was a big narrative. If when we get into certain topics, you can step out the room if it makes you uncomfortable. I'm going to surprise you. I don't subscribe to that. I don't do that. I say to people, and I want you to listen to me carefully. I say to people who feel uncomfortable about the discussion, I said, imagine the privilege it is that you could spend 2 hours engaging in an uncomfortable discussion. People have been living in this discomfort for all their lives. So you don't want to talk about, because I can tell you, I had a situation at school years ago when there was a discomfort about talking about immigrants and refugees. And I remember I said to them, I said, good, we're going to have a 65 minutes class and you're uncomfortable talking about it. But people who are refugees are living in refugee camps for years. So the truth is, I am honestly, genuinely not too concerned about someone who is privileged, who is going to be uncomfortable for a conversation. I say to that person, own your privilege and let's get the work done. Own your privilege and let's get the work done. And think about it. What a privilege to be uncomfortable for 2 hours and you can go back to your beautiful bed with all kind of good, wonderful, all kind of good, wonderful linen and have a good cup of tea or stop by the nearest restaurant and pick up your favorite meal to enjoy the rest of your day, because that's a privilege. And we have to honor that and realize it's a privilege. And we take the last question.
The last question is from me. I'm Azaria.
Zaria, nice to meet you, Zaria.
Galaxy Tab E. My question is, what do you say to teachers who say racism is too political or too inappropriate to discuss in class or not a part of their curriculum like STEM?
Racism is political. You are political. It is political. And you cannot not discuss racism when a Black woman, a Black boy, a Black girl is right there in front of you. And that's what we keep having. We keep having the eraser. We keep erasing identity. I don't want to talk about Muslim, but there's an hijab wearing student right in front of me. And I'm going to call myself an amazing teacher. I don't know her. But I'm an amazing teacher. But we're not going to talk about Islam or Muslim. We're not going to talk about Black. We're not going to talk about race. We're not going to add. You have to engage in this. I'm going to give you a word by Linda Billings. She says something that I love. I want you to listen carefully. She said, we enter the society raced. We come to school raced. We apply for jobs raced. We enter the marketplace raced. We can never leave our race at home or on a shelf. So because we are plagued by the social construct, we have to find ways to live our lives and participate in society with one aspect of our identity that seems to enter the room before we do. So the idea that we are not going to have the conversation is not true. And the idea that it is not connected to the lesson is not true. So we have to remember that we still have students in our school who identify. You are there, you are the students. How could I have you four in my class and not talk about race? How could I? Tell me, give me one magical way I could be a great teacher and have 4 Black students, but let's not say 4, have 1 Black student in front of me and think it's okay not to discuss race. My student is celebrating Ramadan. You think it's not for me not to say to her, how are you celebrating Ramadan? You have to identify and recognize your students. That's how you get to know your students. That's how you get to know you. And remember the slide I said, I am here, see me. And that's the issue why so many of our students are disengaged. They don't feel seen in school. So I will close with this. We have to make sure we see our students. We have to make sure we see all our students. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that.